Hey everyone, welcome to my review of the Cooler Master HAF X mid-tower case. This case will comfortably fit a high-end build. It has massive air cooling capabilities and also some water cooling capabilities that aren't advertised, which I'm going to show you later in the review. Anyway, let's jump straight in and see what this case has to offer. So the case is constructed entirely from steel and plastic. The frame of the case is steel, the outer panels are plastic and steel mesh. The paint color is midnight black, the finish is satin black. It appears to be a powder coat. So starting with the front panel, at the bottom we have a ventilated area. This is a small perforation honeycomb mesh. As you can see, it's raised and shaped. This adds strength and it also improves the aesthetics. It's dust filtered. Behind it is a very fine mesh. In the middle of the front panel we have the X dock. It's two hot swap bays. They fit 3.5 inch and 2.5 inch drives. You can see the mounting holes for 2.5 inch. There's toolless mounting for 3.5 inch and another mounting hole to fix them into position. The front of these bays is ventilated with the same dust filtered mesh that you'll see throughout the case. Moving up we have three 5.25 inch bays. As you can see, the bay covers are ventilated. These bay covers need to be removed from the inside. You can either access them from the inside of the case or you can remove the entire front panel, which I'm going to do shortly. For the front I/O we have two USB 2 headphone and microphone jacks and two USB 3. At the top we have a nice big power button which is easy to access, a smaller reset button and another button which is for the LEDs in the included front 200mm red LED fan. At this price point, the design and quality of these buttons is good, but I find over time these buttons can start to flex and they can end up getting jammed. The front panel is held in position by plastic clips. It's easy to remove. It pulls off from the bottom. There's a gap down there where you can get your hand in to remove it. Looking at the inside of the front panel, the 5.25 inch bays are held in position by a clip on either side so they can easily be removed from the inside of the front panel. The construction is very strong. It's all thick reinforced plastic. You can see on the inside of the mesh is reinforced honeycomb plastic, and this is even on the inside of the 5.25 inch bay covers. You're not going to have any problems with strength. All of the mesh can be removed by bending up the tabs around the outside. You might just be able to see the dust filter material here. It's a fly screen type material, a fine mesh, and it's not the most effective dust filter material, but at this price point it's great to see that it's almost right through the case. On the inner front panel we have this large perforation honeycomb which is going to allow for massive ventilation. Fan mounting options on the front panel is a single 200mm, a single 140mm or two 120mm fans. The fan mounted on the front panel comes with the case by default. It's a Cooler Master 200mm red LED fan. Just a brief look at the inside of the hot swap and 5.25 inch bays. Now looking at the top panel, at the front we have a compartment for personal items. Some little details here. It's nice to see that they've been considered. There's a piece of rubber in the bottom which can be removed to be cleaned. It has a tab to aid removal and guides to hold it in position. Now I'm not a fan of these compartments because they take from the aesthetics. I think they're unnecessary. This one has been well integrated though. There's a large ventilated area across the top panel. So this is the same dust filtered mesh. It's been raised and shaped. It has a divider in the middle which is going to help to add strength. Now this top panel is a plastic cover. It's about 60mm in height, so there's plenty of room underneath it for fans and also possibly radiators, which we'll take a look at shortly. It's held in position by a single thumb screw at the back and it just lifts straight up off the top of the case. Just a brief look at the construction of the top panel cover. The strength is very good. It's all thick reinforced plastic. You can see the reinforced plastic honeycomb underneath the mesh. You don't often see this many included 200mm fans. These fans are very quiet and they move a massive amount of air. If you're building an air-cooled system into this case, the cooling that comes with the case is going to be more than enough. There's going to be no reason to purchase any extra fans. I've removed the two 200mm fans from the top panel and you can see the bolts that we use to attach them are fairly specialized. They're all black, they're only threaded on the end so they're the perfect length for the fans. All of the fans that come with this case also come with these converters from 3-pin to Molex. They also have a Molex pass-through, and they're all black connectors and black wire, which is great to see. Looking at the fan mounting options on the top panel, you can fit two 200mm fans, two 140mm fans, or two 120mm fans. There's also water cooling options on the top panel, which we'll take a look at shortly. No matter what fan configuration you use, there is cable routing holes available. So the side panels have shape and character to them, and this is something that you'll see in all of the HAF cases. It's really part of the HAF design and aesthetics. You can see a large latch in the side panel. To remove the side panel, you need to lift the latch, and the side panel lifts up and off the case. You don't need to move the side panel towards the back of the case. The latch is practical. It's easy to access and it's effective, but it's big and bulky. It would have been a massive improvement in aesthetics if the latch had have been a lot smaller. Either that, or if there had have been two latches, smaller latches, one at either end of the side panel. This raised area is raised by approximately 10 millimeters, and this allows for the installation of either a 200mm or two 120mm fans in this ventilated area. This option is not available in the windowed version of the case. You can see a small dent in the side panel, which happened during shipping. The side panel can be held in position with two thumb screws as well as the latch, and it's also lockable. The latch mechanism works well, although I found that when locking the side panel back into position, you have to apply a lot of pressure to the side panel for the mechanism to engage. So looking at the mechanism itself, it's a simple but effective design. It has minimal points of failure. It really only has one moving part, which is connected to the latch itself, and then it has a spring on either side, and the construction is good. The side panel is also folded around the edges, which means double thickness. Now this dust filter material, if that's even what it's meant to be, is going to do very little except restrict airflow. It's also included as a power supply dust filter in this case, and the first thing I'd do if I built into this case is remove this material. What should have been included here is the same dust filter material that's included throughout the rest of the case. Looking at the rear side panel, you can see that it has the same shape as the front side panel, but it's obviously lacking the latch and ventilation. This side panel has the most common latching design. It installs from the rear of the case. Looking at the back panel, at the bottom is the power supply mounting area. It has mounting holes for mounting the power supply facing up or down. This case has 8+1 expansion slots with ventilated slot covers. On the back panel, there's mounting holes for a 120mm or 140mm fan. At the top, we have grommeted holes for water cooling tubing and or cables. Okay, this case fits ITX, MATX, ATX and EATX motherboards. You can see the very large CPU cooler backplate cutout. So many manufacturers get this wrong. They make it too small, they put it in the wrong places. This one is massive and it's well placed. It goes right across the back of the motherboard. You can see there's a lot of shape to the motherboard tray, and this is something you'll see in all of the HAF cases and right through these cases. There's a lot of stamping and folding, and this adds a lot of strength, and it also makes the cases look more interesting. It fits the particular aesthetic of these cases. The cable routing in this build is excellent. Something you see in far too many cases is an overabundance of cable routing holes. It takes from the aesthetics because you have grommets everywhere, and usually even though there's so many, they're misplaced and badly sized. If you take a look at the positioning of the cable routing holes in this case, they're perfect and they're also the correct sizes. The grommets are also high quality. They flip back into position nicely and they're not going to pop out. You also have a cable routing hole up here for the 5.25 inch bays, so that you can route cables cleanly to 5.25 inch bay devices, and this is something you often don't see. And you have extra cable routing all the way down the side of the bays, the 5.25 inch, hot swap and 3.5 inch. Now it's nice to have the option of the power supply cover, but I don't really think it's a necessary feature because this should be a really clean part of your cable management if you do things right. It could come in handy for hiding other components though, and it's also a good place to mount water cooling components such as pumps and reservoirs. It's adjustable. You can slide it towards the front and back of the build. You can see a hole in the top for routing cables and also possibly tubing. It's held in position by two screws and also rails at the bottom, so all you need to do to remove it is undo those screws and lift it up and out of the rails. So once you remove it, you can see that there's a lot of space down here, and there's a lot that could be done with all of this space. Take a look at the size of the cable routing hole next to the power supply. This is the cable routing hole that needs to be bigger than any of the others because it's the one that all of the power supply cables need to go through. And this is a mistake that so many case manufacturers make. I always find I can't fit all of the power supply cables through this cable routing hole. You can see this one is perfectly sized, as is all of the others in this case. Looking at the front panel cables, a lot of them are black, which is good to see. The front panel USB 3 plugs directly into a USB 3 motherboard header. The power supply ventilation area has the same dust filter material that's in the side panel. As I mentioned, the best thing to do is remove this because it's only going to restrict airflow. It's good to see some rubber down here for the power supply to be mounted onto. This helps to prevent scratches. A lot of cases, the power supply just mounts metal to metal. Looking up the inside of the case, you can see the 8+1 expansion slots. The extra expansion slot is accessible from the inside of the case, so this means you can install up to 3 graphics cards. There's another included fan mounted on the back panel. It's a Cooler Master 140mm fan, so this is the 4th included fan. 3 of them are 200mm fans. They all come with these converters. The 5.25-inch bay locking mechanisms are well designed. They're robust and easy to use. The hot swap is powered by a single Molex. You can see the 2 SATA connectors. A black PCB would have been nice. As well as the 2 hot swap bays, there's another 6 bays for a total of 8 3.5-inch or 2.5-inch bays. The drive sleds lock into position nicely. They're designed slightly differently to the ones in the hot swap bays. They're a little bit stronger. You can see the 2.5-inch drive mounts in the middle, and again toolless mounting for 3.5-inch drives with another mounting hole to lock them into position. There's a moderate amount of ventilation through the hard drive cages, and this is an excellent feature. There's mounting holes on the back of the hard drive cages for 2 120mm fans. The top hard drive cage is removable. There's just 6 screws to remove it. The bottom one is not. With both of the hard drive cages in position, you can install graphics cards of up to 354mm in length. With the top hard drive cage removed, you can install graphics cards of up to 463mm in length. I've removed the top hard drive cage, and as you can see, only one side of it comes out of position, and this is probably for structural integrity. Now for a look around the back of the case at the cable management area. The first thing I notice back here is there's an extra 2.5-inch drive mounting position for a total of 9 2.5-inch in this case. This is something that should be done more often. There's plenty of room for it back here. It's an extremely useful feature. It's an excellent idea. Now I've already mentioned that the cable routing in this case is near perfect. You can see there's quite a number of cable management punch outs. Now these are in a lot of cases, but usually they're badly placed, and I find that most of them are useless when doing cable management. In this case, they are almost perfectly placed. They're in the exact paths you should be routing your cables. Now it appears there's not much space back here for cable management, about 15mm, but you need to consider that the side panel protrudes 10mm, so this gives you 25mm for most of the cable management area. There's also a large amount of space next to and behind all of the bays at the front of the case. Behind the hard drive cages here, there's approximately 80mm. Just a quick look underneath the case, there's not much to see down here. The case feet are high quality and they have good aesthetics. Now the weight of the case is 10.5 kilograms, maximum CPU cooler height is 196mm, and the dimensions are 252 by 530.5 by 579mm. Okay, I know this has already been a long review. I provide as much detail as I can because I know there are people who are interested, and if you're not, you can just skip through the video. This is an extra segment for those who are interested in water cooling and or modding this case. I currently have a 360mm radiator installed in the roof of the case underneath the top panel. And you can see that the length is perfect. It comes right up to the back of this top panel section. One small problem is that not all of the mounting holes line up. 8 of them do, 4 of them don't. So strength is not going to be a problem. You'll just need to put some spacers underneath the front fan. So you can just use a couple of washers or something similar to bring the fan up to the height of the others. So I think you can see what I mean though. Those front 4 mounting holes don't line up with anything. This is a Black Ice SR1, it's 54 millimeters thick, and it comes down below the motherboard standoffs by about 15 millimeters. There's not enough room behind it, so it means that a radiator of this thickness is not going to fit. It's going to hit motherboard components. A 30 millimeter thick radiator will definitely fit up here though, and the fans will fit above the top panel, underneath the top panel cover. There's plenty of room for them up there. You may also be able to fit a 45 millimeter thick radiator here, but that's at your own risk. It may fit with some components but not others. You'll just have to test that for yourselves. Now, another option is to mount the radiator above the top panel and the fans below. The fans will definitely fit, that's not a problem. The first problem I ran into with a 360mm radiator is that none of the existing mounting holes line up. So you're going to need to do a minor mod. You'll need to drill some new mounting holes. The inlet and outlet are accessible no matter which way you face the radiator, whether it's towards the back or front of the case, so the inlet and outlet line up with open space. When it comes to radiator thickness, a 54mm thick radiator is about 5mm too thick, so a 45mm thick radiator will fit. A 240mm radiator will line up with the existing mounting holes, so that's another configuration you could go for without having to do any modding. A 280mm radiator is also another option, as long as it has a 15mm spacing, because the 140mm mounting holes up here have a 15mm spacing. If you really wanted to do some serious modding, another option is to mount a 480mm radiator on the top panel of this case. It will just fit, but you're going to need to do a lot of cutting up here, drill new mounting holes, and remove this top panel section, which, remember, it has the power and reset button and all of the front panel connectivity, so that will potentially need to be relocated. You'll need to make a new top panel cover. It's a lot of modding. Some other radiator mounting options in this case is the front panel and bottom panel. There's enough room on the bottom panel for a 240, potentially a 280. All you need to do is remove the hard drive cages, which just means drilling out some rivets, and obviously you need to make some cuts and drill some holes. I've measured up from the bottom panel to the motherboard standoffs, and it's approximately 130mm, so you'd easily be able to fit push-pull on a 60mm thick radiator. To mount a 240 on the front panel, you'd have to remove the hot swap bays, hard drive cages, and you'd have to drill new mounting holes. You could also mount a 360 all the way down the front panel. For that, you'd have to remove all of the bays and drill new mounting holes. So that's all of the radiator mounting options in this case. It's now time for me to conclude this review. So there were certainly no big negatives I could find about this case. A few small problems, but overall it's a great case. Now, a few things I would like to see, and these are more personal recommendations from me. A lot of these lower end cases are very similar. I mean, all of the features and design points are basically the same, except for a few small features that could really be called gimmicks, and also the aesthetics, which come down to personal preference. What I would like to see is some innovative features that are actually useful. Also, more water cooling options. You might be thinking this is an entry-level case, but just think, if two 360mm radiators could be mounted in this case, how popular it would be. And it would only take a few small design changes to make that possible. A few more mounting holes here and there, removable drive bays, you know, very small things that wouldn't really increase the price of the case much. So, just a few small recommendations from me. Anyway, based on what I've covered, I'm going to give this case a 7 out of 10. Now, for those of you that enjoy my videos, you need to give Cooler Master massive thanks, because they gave me the opportunity to review this case. And it's opportunities like this that are going to enable me to spend more time on my channel, and that means more videos. That sums up this review. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and favorite if you want to see more.